Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! So yes, as you all see, I'm a chick nursing student. I'm also 30, a military vet, army, and have always done 90% of the work on my vehicles. The only things I can do are balance tires, I don't have the tools, and some of the large work that requires things like cherry pickers and whatnot. Again, I don't have the tools. So, like any good vehicle owner whose vehicle has sat for a long period of time without being driven, after getting back from a 6-month mobilization that left my little Toyota SR5 truck sitting in dry storage, I went through and did maintenance. Checked and replaced my fan belts, air filters, spark plugs, oil and fuel filters. Did an oil change and radiator flush, checked the battery and connections, checked my brake pads and alignment, swapped out my winter tires for summer tires, cleaned out my truck and replaced my winter survival gear with summer survival gear. Because yes, that is a priority where I lived. Last but not least, I added injector treatment to my fuel tank, filled my tank and took my truck to have the tires balanced by a Lee Schwab tire place. Now, because of other errands I had then, because I had just spent 6 months in unpleasant sandy areas in uniform, I dressed up. Heels, dress slacks, silk blouse, well-tailored jacket, and hair up in a bun. Dressed like that, I dropped my truck off, agreed that I needed the tires balanced, and that was it. And I was told that it would be about an hour. Awesome! I was about to walk off to go to my other errands down the block when I noticed through that big glass window that the Lee Schwab places have that they were already pulling my truck into the bay. So I decided to wait. And being the interested person that I am, I watched as the two guys started to pull my tires off my truck, and the third, the man who had taken my keys and agreed that I was only asking for my tires to be balanced, sat in the driver's seat jolting down notes on a little notepad. After about 10 minutes, the third guy with a notepad came back inside and walked over to me and explained that during his free assessment of my vehicle, he found a lot of safety issues that needed to be corrected. Like what? I asked him. Well, it's like this. He responded, and then proceeded to rattle off a list of 10 or 12 items from his notepad that he had noticed in his free assessment. Fan belt needs to be replaced. Overdue for oil change and radiator flush. Fuel and oil filters are shot and have to be replaced. Brake pads are shot and have to be replaced. Alignment is totally out of whack and ruined my tires, which now have to be replaced instead of just balanced. Everything on his list were things I had just checked and/or replaced. And he ended with this. I'm really sorry, miss, but your vehicle is one big safety problem. I can't release it to you to drive in the condition it's currently in. Keep in mind, not only had I just done all this work, most of it on his list, but he had never once opened the hood of my truck. You can't look at the majority of what I have listed here or that he had on his list without opening the hood of the vehicle. After a moment of consideration, I asked him how much he thought it would be to make it roadworthy. He screwed up his face and did some math in his little notebook. A rough estimate? $3,700. But it could cost more because your vehicle is technically an import, and the parts can be hard to find. I asked to speak with his manager and was told that the manager was out for the day. I then responded with, "So you're telling me that unless I get $3,700 worth of work done on my vehicle, you can't release my vehicle to me, the rightful owner, because it isn't safe or roadworthy?" Well, yes. He continued on with this babble of apologies and explanations in a sly, fakely apologetic, condescending tone, and asked if there was anyone I could consult with about a repair this large, or if there was anyone who could give me a ride home. I asked him to give me a couple of minutes and walked out into the parking lot and got on my phone out of earshot from him or his mechanics, who were still balancing my tires, and promptly got on the phone with the sheriff's department. When I explained everything to the officer, he promised to be out in 15 minutes to help me clear that matter. I walked back inside and told that mechanic, with the sweetest smile I could conjure, that I would have someone here presently to help me with the matter. I also asked him for the list of the repairs needed along with his quote so I could discuss it with my friend who will be arriving very shortly. And he happily handed me the evidence to his arrest, and even signed his name on it for me, so that I could get in contact with him if I needed more than today to consider the repairs and costs. The cherry on top of the whole thing was, the absent manager walked in just in time to see the employee get handcuffed, and I got a free tire balance service because of what the now former employee tried to pull. This story is a few years old enough that the grandchild in question is tugging my beard as I write this. I'm a Midwestern white guy of Scottish descent. If I got too much sun, I'll explode in plaid flames. I'm so white. My wife and kids are not. My wife and kids are Mexican, and my presence makes family barbecues interesting. And I have been known to harness the power of my whiteness when police are called because a birthday party for an 8-year-old niece or nephew gets out of hand. Now that we have that out of the way, one of my Mexican sons marries a Guatemalan woman. Needless to say, they speak a lot of Spanish. Occasionally, I find myself out with my daughter-in-law, and as a South American woman, she absolutely cannot function without a high enough coffee-to-blood ratio. So we are sitting in a certain mermaid-themed coffee shop in a mall, having a conversation in Espanol. Have you ever wondered how you know if the person that says, "This is American, we speak English here," is a racist jerk or just a lazy self-entitled jerk? It's moments like this, where the racist jerk sees two people having a private conversation in Spanish and walks by the white guy to harass a pregnant Latin woman. Now anybody who has ever met a Latina knows that you piss him off at your own risk. This is a good way to find out if a high-heeled shoe can be absorbed rectally. I will neither confirm nor deny that. I already know the answer to this question. When you piss off a Latina, you will get no help from others. They know better. They also don't want to get any of you on them when she starts ripping your vital organs out of you. So this racist sea hag hitches up her Louboutins, clutches her Michael Kors bag, struts past me, bends right down in my daughter-in-law's face, and screams at the top of her lungs, "Speak English or go back where you came from. You people are destroying this country." My daughter-in-law stands up and without a word, slaps the Gucci sunglasses right off her face, and she sits back down. The sea hag's head spins around. She takes the time to look around and lays down on the ground screaming at the top of her lungs that this foreign immigrant terrorist has just assaulted her for no reason. "Call the police! Call the army!" Sea hag's husband comes running over and is just about to get in my daughter-in-law's face when I stand up. Let's just say I absolutely dwarf this guy. I stand over 6 feet tall, have a beard down to my chest, and I pick heavy things up and put them down again in my spare time. As a result, I tip the scales north of 300 pounds, and each of my thighs is larger than my daughter-in-law's waist. He's maybe 5'6", and with $6 in change in each pocket, might weigh 125 pounds. I take one look at this guy and he goes whiter than he already was. And I say, think very hard. Any part of you that touches her, I'm going to break off and force feed to you. Now go away and take that thing with you. As I point to the sea hag, they slink off to sit in a booth on the other side of the coffee shop. Naturally, someone has called the police, who show up in short order. Sea hag immediately launches into her speech about how she was just minding her own business, and out of nowhere, this crazed Islamic terrorist attacked her and started beating the hell out of her. And that red-beard race traitor beat the hell out of her husband as well, and laughed at him. She thinks his nose might be broken, and that they both need to go to jail now. The second cop comes over to our table, and my daughter-in-law turns on the waterworks. The crazy woman started screaming at me. I was just defending myself. She places a hand on her stomach and says, "And my baby." I summon my powers of whiteness and tell the officer, "I'm certain this place has cameras. There are at least a dozen witnesses to that woman's screaming tirade, and I assure you that my daughter-in-law will not be answering any more of your questions without her attorney present." The cops take a few minutes to talk to a couple of other people, look at the security footage, and come back to tell us that, while the daughter-in-law probably shouldn't have slapped the sea hag, it's pretty clear that it was in self-defense, and while they will be filing out a report, they will not be arresting anyone. I'm hoping that sea hag enjoyed a good wake-up slap from a wild Latina. This is a few years back. Though I'm still driving my 2005 Santa Fe that's involved with this little dust-up. I had just gotten a new job in a different state, and because it was somewhat of a promotion, the company paid entirely for the move. After seeing all of my stuff packed away safely, the movers started heading to the new state. But as they were driving a different route to avoid icy roads through the Rockies, they were going to take a little longer, so we drove through the night and ended up staying at a hotel. On the way over, I noticed my brakes started to vibrate just a bit on the descent into the new state. And they were squeaking a tad new brake pads. Maybe new rotors if they can be machined. No big deal, right? So after we got our stuff unloaded and into the new place, I took the car to a mechanic shop that had good ratings and was even recommended to me by a co-worker. But I swear they took a look at my out-of-state license plates and saw dollar signs. When I dropped off the car, I signed the work order for a tire rotation. I know, I'm lazy. And a free inspection. Just wanting them to confirm my suspicion on the brakes. I specifically told them to not do any work unless I specifically authorize them over the phone and in writing. And you can probably guess what happened next. I called after an hour to see what they have found. And sure enough, the boss of the shop said that, unfortunately, I not only needed new pads and rotors, but new calipers as well, totaling $1,200, but not to worry, as they had already started working on it and would have it done in just under a couple hours. Needless to say, I was pissed as all hell, and told him that I had not authorized that, nor did I agree that those repairs were likely necessary. I told him I would be over in a minute to cease all work on the car, and that I would talk to him in person. On the way over, I called a different shop, one that had better ratings, and the one I eventually used for every car-related need after this for the rest of the time I lived in that state. And I explained the situation. She said that it was highly suspect that they wanted to replace the calipers, but that they would be happy to give me a second opinion, of course, and that they usually ran around $300 for new pads and rotors. I always get second and sometimes third opinions on non-emergency repairs like this, just because of the skewed incentives of the dodgy repair places to trump up what's needed, like that original place was doing. Anyway, I get to the repair shop and proceeded to tell the manager that I was taking my car elsewhere for a second opinion, and that if he was right and the calipers needed to be replaced, along with the rest of the brakes assembly, I would be happy to have him bid on the work. He responded that he would be happy to have my car towed to a different shop for $150, but that he was legally obligated to hold my car as it was an unsafe vehicle, and he would be liable for any damages that ensued if my brakes were to fail should I leave. I knew this was nonsense, wheeled about it for about 10 minutes, with him every time refusing to budge, saying that he'd have it towed for $150 or do the repairs, nothing else. I told him he was committing Grand Theft Auto, and that I would call the cops if he didn't put my car back together and let me drive away. He told me to do it, that they would back him 100%, and they might fine me for driving with completely destroyed brakes. So I did. I called the non-emergency police line and was eventually transferred to a very nice female police officer, and I calmly explained to her my situation. She was super helpful and confirmed, of course, that the mechanic had no legal basis to hold my car against my will. And although she did warn me that I was, of course, liable for any or other problems that might arise if I was indeed driving with bad brakes, it wasn't his problem. She actually laughed at him, saying he was liable if I got into a wreck after I left, and that he was in violation of the law. So I took my cell phone in and had him talk to her, and he proceeded to be a massive jerk to her on the phone. At first, not believing that she was in fact a real police officer, and then insisting that she didn't know what she was talking about. He'd done this before and knew the law. He still didn't believe she was a real actual police officer. So she promised that he'd found out soon enough. She told me she said that after he handed the phone back to me. 15 minutes later, after I waited outside because I was really close to just losing it talking to this jerk, a squad car rolls up and asks me where the manager is. They were informed already of the situation. Walked up to the guy and handed him something I assume was either a ticket or a summons or something like that. They wouldn't tell me what afterwards, but they did look satisfied as all hell and were super nice to me. And they told him to put my car back together immediately and let me go. This had all been over 4+ hours from the time I dropped my car off to the time they drove it out of the bay ready for me to drive away. And after all that, he hands me the bill, $50 for a tire rotation and $100 for the inspection. I had a copy of the original, of course, and told him to go get lost on the inspection fee. And looking at my car outside, I told him to see for himself that the tires weren't actually rotated. The cops were still there too, so there wasn't much he could do but let me sign a $0 work order for nothing and walk away. It was glorious. And of course, the other repair shop said it was just the bads that needed to be replaced, and they were able to machine the rotors so that there wasn't a hint of vibration. All told, $200 and a great new mechanic I could trust in a new area to boot. Seriously, when I find a mechanic or dentist that I know is honest, I will remain loyal to them until I die or move more than 4 hours away. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.